Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the English Daily Book Summary YouTube channel. In order to not stop learning, listen to an English book summary every day for free.
Neri Kara Silliman, Pioneers, 8 Principles of Business Longevity from Immigrant Entrepreneurs. What if the secret to building a resilient, values-driven company wasn't found in a Silicon Valley playbook, but in the life story of someone who crossed a border with nothing but ambition? The stories of immigrant entrepreneurs are rich with lessons. How to turn cultural displacement into strategic insight, how to build something that lasts with limited resources, and how to stay grounded in your purpose while navigating constant change. In this blink, you'll discover powerful principles drawn from the journeys of immigrant founders who've built thriving, long-lasting businesses. While we don't have time to cover all 8 of the author's principles, you'll get to hear 5 of her most distinctive and useful concepts. And by the way, you don't need to be an immigrant to apply these lessons. Whether you're launching a venture, growing a side hustle, or simply rethinking what success means, you'll walk away with timeless tools to help you build something that lasts. Bridging cultures. What do you get when you mix a croissant with a donut? In Dominique Ansel's case, a global pastry phenomenon. But long before the cronut caused lines to wrap around New York City blocks, Dominique was a bullied teen in rural France. He was raised in poverty and hardened by abuse in the kitchens where he trained. When he emigrated to New York, he had little money, lots of rent to pay, and no choice but to persevere. Eventually, that led him to invent one of the most iconic desserts of the 21st century. Ansel's story shows how resilience, vision, and cultural fusion can create something the world doesn't even know it craves. This illustrates a broader truth. Immigrants have the superpower to bridge cultures. They create businesses that thrive at the intersections of identity, taste, and tradition. Some, like Dominique, invent brand new hybrids like the cronut. Others, like the founders of New Me Tea, bring traditional goods from their home countries and adapt them to local markets. New Me Tea started with a dried desert lime tree from Iraq and built a brand that resonated with health-conscious Americans. Similarly, Karan Moria, founder of Cobra Beer, used his experience as a British Indian to craft a lager that pairs perfectly with Indian food. In each case, cultural fluency becomes a source of innovation. Beyond identifying opportunities, immigrant entrepreneurs excel at building the cross-cultural teams and partnerships necessary for success. They navigate what academics call institutional distance. The differences in laws, regulations, consumer preferences, and business practices between countries. Cobra Beer founder Bill Amoria leveraged his understanding of both Indian and British business environments to create partnerships with Indian brewers while adapting product names and marketing strategies for British consumers. Later, his creation of institutions like the UK-India Business Council further bridged this gap. For aspiring entrepreneurs, cultivating cross-cultural understanding is essential. This means immersing yourself in other cultures through travel and language learning, seeking diverse mentors and partners, creating inclusive work environments, and most importantly, being authentic in your appreciation of different cultures. Immigrant entrepreneurs succeed not just because of where they come from, but because of what they carry between worlds: insight, empathy, and adaptability. Their stories remind us that culture is the raw material from which businesses are built, and those who can shape it, who can bridge divides with authenticity and creativity, often end up leading the way into the future. Building from the past forward and the future back. It started with dragons, or at least that's how it felt to the author Neri Karasilliman when she was 11 years old. Her Turkish family had to flee an ethnic purge in communist Bulgaria. Standing just outside the Bulgarian-Turkish border after a harrowing escape, she experienced a moment of perfect clarity. "I have to get a good education," she thought. This vision would carry her from refugee camps to prestigious universities and culminate in a life dedicated to entrepreneurship and teaching. Neri's story is a case study in how immigrant entrepreneurs excel at transforming trauma and adversity into long-term vision. They build in two directions simultaneously, from the past forward and the future back. This dynamic process forms the basis of the 3I framework: identity, intention, and imagined future. Anyone can use this framework to build a compelling vision that drives long-term impact. The idea is simple but powerful. First, you identify what really matters to you by looking deep into your personal history. Jan Koum, the co-founder of WhatsApp, carried memories from Soviet Ukraine when he immigrated to California at age 16. His frustrations with expensive international calls and his mother's constant fears about phone tapping shaped Koum's values around privacy and freedom. After identifying what matters to you, name the disconnect between your values and the world around you. That's your intention, the problem you want to solve. Unlike conventional entrepreneurs who start with market gaps, immigrants begin with problems they personally care about solving. For Koum, American communication was expensive, complicated, and lacked privacy. Now it's time to think about the future. Imagine a world where that problem is solved by asking yourself what-if questions. What if communication could be free? What if messaging was completely private? These questions led Koum to visualize WhatsApp, a free, secure, simple communication tool without ads or tracking. The app reshaped global communication and was eventually acquired by Facebook for $19 billion. But for Koum, the money was secondary. The real reward was solving a meaningful problem. The 3I framework starts with introspection and leads to action. Once you imagine the future you want, you can plan backwards from it, allowing you to design from a place of purpose rather than constraint. In the end, it all comes back to authenticity. The most successful visions are grounded in who you are, what you care about, and what future you dare to imagine. Start there, and you're already on your way. Forging authentic connections. In a quiet corner of Long Island, a lonely Korean music student named Seju Jong made repeat calls to T-Mobile. There was nothing wrong with his phone. He just wanted to hear another human voice. This moment, however sad, was also the beginning of something much bigger. Years later, at a Princeton alumni gathering, Seju met Artem Pedikov, a Ukrainian software engineer. Their shared immigrant outsider status forged an immediate bond that eventually blossomed into Noom, a health company now valued at $3.7 billion. Their story captures a key principle of immigrant entrepreneurial success: building authentic connections rooted in identity. A surprising insight into this comes from a study of birds in 1930s Britain. When milk bottles were first sealed with aluminum caps, titmice quickly learned to pierce them to reach the cream, while robins never figured it out. The difference? Titmice are social flocking birds that share innovations across their community, while robins are territorial and solitary. Like the communal titmice, immigrant entrepreneurs excel at flocking together to share knowledge and build networks that help them overcome challenges. This dynamic is evident in Karan Billamoria's early days building Cobra Beer. With no collateral, he found support through connections in London's Gujarati community. One advisor even later became godfather to Billamoria's child. Among immigrant entrepreneurs, business relationships often evolve into family-like bonds. This depth of connection creates resilience that helps businesses weather crises that might otherwise destroy them. But this isn't just about sticking with your own kind. Smart immigrant entrepreneurs recognize when to expand beyond their comfort zone by hiring people unlike themselves who bring valuable outside perspectives. A balance between tight, trust-based relationships and openness to diversity helps create businesses that remain adaptable through changing circumstances. Narrative also plays a central role. Immigrant entrepreneurs are often natural storytellers, not because they were taught, but because their lives demand it. Their stories, when shared authentically, invite connection. When Billamoriya approached Turkish restaurant owners in Britain, he emphasized their shared immigrant experience of introducing authentic cultural food to a new market. Anyone can apply these principles by focusing on what unites rather than divides. So join networks aligned with your background, interests, or values. Practice empathy by truly listening to others. Be genuinely curious about the people around you, your staff, partners, customers. Most importantly, recognize that effective connections aren't about pretending to be someone you're not. They require authenticity at their core. Profit done right. Luis von Ahn was a kid in a candy shop, at least on paper. As a child in war-torn Guatemala, he spent weekends playing in his family's candy factory while violence consumed the country. When Luis was 15, his aunt was kidnapped and held for ransom for over a week. This was a tipping point that convinced Luis to flee to the U.S. at age 15 to begin a new chapter. There, he created CAPTCHA and then reCAPTCHA to combat bots faking user accounts. Though he gave CAPTCHA away for free, he eventually sold reCAPTCHA to Google. But Luis wasn't interested in getting rich. He was interested in education and equality. The poverty he'd witnessed in Guatemala had shown him that education, supposedly a great equalizer, often made inequality worse. The rich bought elite learning. The poor got left behind. This inspired him to create a free language learning app, Duolingo, that now has more users than the entire American school system and is worth over $10 billion. Luis's story exemplifies the fourth principle of immigrant entrepreneurial success: generating profit the right way. Traditional business thinking holds that a company's only responsibility is maximizing profit. Industries face increasing scrutiny for their social and environmental impacts. Consumers increasingly recognize how corporations often thrive at the expense of communities, workers, and our planet. But today's most successful organizations integrate purpose into their core operations. This is what Oxford professor Colin Mayer calls inclusive purpose. It's the idea that profit and social value aren't in tension. Instead, the most successful companies are those that solve real problems, treat workers fairly, and consider their place in the wider ecosystem. Immigrant entrepreneurs tend to understand this intuitively, having experienced scarcity and injustice firsthand. When Duolingo competed against established giant Rosetta Stone, many predicted failure. Yet today, Duolingo enjoys significantly higher user numbers and revenue. The secret? Its commitment to free language education, which serves as a brilliant business strategy. 97% of users don't pay. but they do spread the word organically. This demonstrates how pursuing mission over money can paradoxically lead to greater financial success. Implementing inclusive purpose requires embracing a broader business mission beyond profit, prioritizing social and environmental considerations as core strategy components, and innovating specifically for social impact. It means cultivating inclusive company cultures, engaging in meaningful collaborations, and making products as accessible as possible to different economic levels. Most importantly, it once again requires authenticity, aligning your company's mission with causes you genuinely care about. As demonstrated by successful immigrant entrepreneurs, staying true to purpose creates sustainable profits, benefits communities and the planet, and helps businesses endure long after trend-chasing competitors have vanished. Fry in your own oil. In 1985, deadly gang violence ravaged Cali, Colombia. Meanwhile, 15-year-old Beto Perez did something unexpected. He danced. Beto worked 3 jobs to support his single mother and taught himself to dance in his spare time. Eventually, he won a national competition and earned a spot at a top school. To pay his way, he taught aerobics. One day, though, he forgot his usual cassette, so he improvised a class to Latin beats. His students loved it, and the mistake eventually became Zumba, now a global fitness phenomenon. Beto teamed up with 2 fellow Colombian immigrants to try bringing their joyful fusion of dance and fitness to the U.S. But launching a business after the dot-com bust and 9/11 wasn't easy. With no outside funding and limited English, they did everything themselves, teaching classes, packing DVDs, and sharing a tiny apartment. They had only $14,000 between them when they took a last-ditch gamble on a new idea: the Zumba Instructor Network. Their bet paid off. Rather than splurging on advertising, they empowered instructors to become the face of the brand. As a result, the network spread organically, fueled by joy, community, and social media. Today, Zumba is worth over $500 million, with classes in 180 countries. The story is a testament to how far you can go by frying in your own oil. This is a principle of using what you already have, whether it's skills, creativity, or grit, to cook up something powerful. That's what Beto and his partners did. They turned scarcity into strategy and local energy into a global movement. Relying on yourself forces resourcefulness. Entrepreneurs who bootstrap their businesses learn the mechanics of their operation from the inside out. They hire smarter, waste less, and adapt faster. And when growth finally comes, they're better prepared to steer it. This mindset also helps avoid the common trap of overgrowth. Many founders fall into the habit of borrowing too much, scaling too fast, and losing sight of what made their business special. The Zumba founders, by contrast, grew at the pace their network could support, slowly, steadily, and with purpose. They didn't sacrifice quality or culture to appease outside investors. This allowed them to build something lasting, rather than burning out in pursuit of quick wins. Successful immigrant entrepreneurs take a broad view that considers the readiness of all company resources. The right strategy for many firms is sometimes to actually say no to faster growth. That's what Dominique Ansel did when rejecting lucrative offers to mass-produce his famous cronut. He understood that accepting one would undermine the very quality that made the cronut desirable, thus destroying its long-term sustainability. Frying in your own oil also applies to staffing. As companies grow, maintaining quality means investing in people, not just processes. Immigrant founders often do this well, creating cultures where autonomy, trust, and hands-on leadership replace rigid hierarchy. As Patagonia's Yvonne Chenard put it, there's an ideal size for every business. We're focused on longevity, not expansion. Immigrant entrepreneurs understand this deeply. They prove again and again that with limited resources but clear purpose, you can build a business that endures. In this Blink to Pioneers by Neri Kara Silliman, you've learned that immigrant entrepreneurs succeed by leveraging a few key principles. They bridge cultures, transforming cross-cultural perspectives into competitive advantages. They apply the 3I framework to build compelling visions by connecting their identity, intention, and imagined futures. And they forge authentic connections while remaining open to diverse perspectives. Immigrant entrepreneurs also generate profit the right way by embedding social impact into core business models, proving purpose and profit can reinforce each other. Finally, they practice self-reliance by frying in their own oil, maximizing existing resources to create sustainable businesses that reflect their values and focus on longevity. Okay, that's it for this Blink. We hope you enjoyed it. If you can, please take the time to leave us a rating. We always appreciate your feedback. See you in the next Blink.